Current business, and quite the collaboration with Billy Porter and Lady Blackbird at BayRadio International End, just gone 25 to 11, mainland Spain, 10 UK and the Canaries. So Ignacio in from Pellicer and Heredia, and Antonio as well. We've talked property a lot, and we'll come to some, more of that in just a moment here, but just a reminder about the webinars, because there isn't one today. There was 2 weeks ago, but Pedro's away. Pedro goes to Poland.
Yeah, that's right. He's going to do a seminar about buying a property in Spain.
Oh, wow. There you go.
He's going with Danielle as well. So then I decided to cancel today and probably pass it on to next Wednesday, or if not possible, the following one.
Sure. Okay. But the previous one, as always with the webinars, was recorded. You're able to watch it back on the website, which alicantelawyers.es is the easiest bit. Go to the live TV bit. And it was the first one of the year, wasn't it? Relocation to Spain for 2024. Big subject.
Yeah.
How did it go?
It went very well. A lot of interest. I think we have 70 devices at least at that time live. Then obviously some people could watch it through the Facebook and different platforms. They could watch it back, and it was very interesting about all the issues that when you decide to relocate to Spain, you should look into. Not only the visa situation, the tax, whether you buy or rent, power of attorney and wills, inheritance taxes.
Yeah.
So a lot of things.
You may think you've thought of everything, but there's probably always going to be something else that comes up. Yeah, quite.
So it was good because it was Pedro, Michael, and myself trying to just answer, but we were inundated with hundreds of questions. And then, well, obviously, when it gets too deep and you need specific advice, it's always better to have video conference. And we have in the system.
Yeah, so they can get in touch with you afterwards. Do a one-on-one, I guess.
I did recommend them because we were running out of time to watch them back, as you always say. We've got probably 100 already in the website, and I think it's a lot of information for you to still have in your head before you have the appointment or you commit yourself with something. Some people are interested to buy in this area, but some in the south, some in the north, and the laws change. But yes, it was a very good, very popular one. And we'll just jump on next time about 720.
Okay. Oh, yes, the Modelo 720, the form. So that's coming up. That soon comes around, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to mention that now?
Because sure. I'll send them a reminder. I mean, if anybody have a resident in Spain, so first requirement, you need to be a resident in Spain. Then you need to have more than 50,000 euros, either in your name or joint names, abroad. And it will be divided in 3 categories. 1 will be bank accounts. 2, shares, stocks, investments. And 3, properties.
Yeah.
But properties, purchase price.
Right.
Not just the real price now. If you bought it many years ago and it was £20,000, then there is no need to declare it.
Really?
Yeah, that's correct.
Right.
Okay, if you go into our website, you will see questions and answer about 720. You need to click on what we do, taxes, and 720. And we've got a lot of videos as well. I mean, another popular question is, do I need to do it every year? No, unless you have cancelled one of the products. Let's call it this way: selling, cancellation of products, inheritance. Okay, so that you need to do it.
If there's been any change in your situation, yeah.
Or if the increase is being more than 20,000 euros from any product.
I see.
Okay, so now the good thing after the European Commission given the fines to Spain for the high fines they were giving, now we're talking about reasonable fines, not lodging. But I always say it's worth it you doing it now. Let's say you sold the property in the UK or wherever, and you're going to just declare the capital gain tax. Now is the right time to report on the 720 that property is gone. And then it's very important you just have all the numbers in place, all the expenses of the file as well, because the more expenses you have on the file, the less capital gains you end up paying.
Right.
And so it's good building it up in advance. And I think from January to March, 720 is great for that, to update it. To April to June, you'll have to declare the income that you had.
That's your tax time.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's March, isn't it, the deadline for 720?
30th
End
of March. Yeah,
sure. But a reminder that if you don't have that amount of assets abroad, you don't need to even fill in a form.
No, if you have it in Spain, some people get confused. They've got it here. Here, the bank is going to declare it anyway to the taxman that you are holding this product. So that's the bottom line. It's like disclosing yourself, the information to the tax office.
Yeah, I think people get worried, don't they? They think you're not going to be immediately taxed on that as soon as you declare it.
No, the 720 is not about paying taxes. It's about declaring, and whatever effect has in the future, that's second. But once you do the 720, you could calculate what impact you're going to have. Now, if it's about declaring, nothing else. If you are going to have only interest, you'll pay the tax on the interest. But eventually, when you do your income tax return. So it's always about self-declaration. So it's a form that you will do yourself, and the income tax return, especially expat or international clients, they are doing themselves like a self-declaration. If you go to the taxman and say, I want you to do my tax return, I do not recommend you to do that for two reasons. One, they don't have all the information around the world. And two, a lot of draft, borrador, right, they're wrong. Okay, because what they're doing doesn't mean that is what they have. The information they have doesn't necessarily matches with the information that you have.
Right, that you've shown, yeah.
So it's very important. People sometimes say, no, I'm going to go there and borrow door. One, probably the clerk that deals with it is not used to it. Two, they're not used to international things. So I've got clients who went through this procedure and it was a nightmare. They did it wrong. And I said, no, because they're not advising. They're just putting information together. And that's the thing. And some people cannot advise on that. So it's good they go to proper professionals.
Sure.
To do it and do tax planning in advance, have it all, everything under control.
Okay, so yes, it's Modelo 720 time. Now then, let's change things up a little bit. Here's something I never thought I'd say during an interview. Let's talk about termites. You just mentioned this during the song there. That should make an interesting subject. So as soon as you mention termites, to me, it reminds me of the old cartoons, where there's a big old mountain, with the sort of anthill, and something happens. But a pest menace to in properties, especially if there's wood.
Yeah.
What's happened? Is there a case going on at the moment?
Well, I think Antonio could tell you a little bit about a case he had. Actually, myself, I dealt with one, and there is a way to have treatment to them, okay, and avoid issues. But Antonio could tell what probably happens if you find out like hidden defects. Going back to the
of course,
number
yes,
one
we'll come full circle.
subject, Antonio.
Yes, that's right. It goes back all the way back to the hidden defects. What's it? Let's say you buy a property, you've checked it, maybe yourself, maybe with an expert, just for, structural damage, the classic things. You've checked the utilities, you buy the property is beautiful, it has wooden beams and the whole thing. And then you realize after a few days that there's a small powder from, sawdust on the bottom of the, or below these wooden frames or the wooden beams. Then what you've got are termites. And there's signs that you can notice, but maybe the seller has been, a little bit sketchy or dodgy about it and has cleaned thoroughly before every visit. So you've never noticed the signs.
Sure.
Because if you don't know, if you don't know what you're looking for or if it has been properly cleaned, then maybe you never know. And the termites have a double problem. They are a classic hidden defect, obviously.
Yeah.
But it is something that's hidden from sight, and you cannot expect the regular or the average person to notice them if, again, the property has been cleaned before the visits. And as I said, it has two effects. One, you've got to kill them, don't you? So there's a treatment that you can make, which is not extremely expensive, although I think it rounds on a couple thousand euros, and they inject like a substance into the wooden beams or wooden parts in order to kill them, prevent them from spreading. So that's the one. But who must pay for that? Either the buyer or the seller. Well, obviously it stands to reason if it was a pre-existing condition of the house and it has been hidden from you, the seller should be the one to pay for that, for the treatment. You can pay it in advance because probably you are in a hurry to kill them before they extend further, but then you have to go back through your solicitor and make a claim against the seller with the appropriate proof of the existence of the termites to get the money back. And the second problem is the damaged, because obviously the termites that are being, running wild inside the wooden parts of a house can at the very least, compromise a door or the frame of a wooden frame for a door. At worst case, the stability of the house.
Yeah,
right?
supporting
if they really get
beams,
into
yeah.
the wooden beams
Yeah, yeah.
and they are supporting the stairs, which is related to, again, a case that I had this year in which there was a very big case of termites. The seller was very, very, very keen on getting their sale done as quickly as possible, particularly during winter. And later we found out that it turns out that termites are only active on the warm months.
Right.
And
I
they
see.
do like the birds, and they hibernate. They sleep during winter, so they are not as active. So you can not really see that much. But
Wow,
the sale
sneaky.
was
Yeah.
signed on the first day of spring. I'm sure the seller was very happy until we found out, and obviously make a claim against him.
Sure. So it would, I mean, in theory, it would be black and white, clean cut. It's their fault, but it's probably the sort of thing that would go to court, would it?
Oh yeah, it's the sort of thing that, particularly if the seller hid it in purpose. Right? If it's at the beginning of a termite case and maybe the seller is not aware, then you are more likely to get first a cheap solution, maybe just injections and that's it. But if the seller knew and keep it hidden, then they will probably want to fight back. So your pre-trial motions, your pre-case steps, in order to avoid going to court and trying to settle the case in the most fair or favorable way possible, are key. It's not always, once you have a problem, it's try going to court. I think here in Pellicer, well, Ignacio will confirm, obviously, but I don't think here in Pellicer Heredia that's our first step. Our first step is to assess the claim, to see if effectively there's a case, and then reach out to the other party to try and reach an amicable, reasonable agreement that is quick, is fast, and again, fair for all the parties involved.
Settle out of court, yeah.
That's right,
Yeah.
before just, going gung-ho with the guns and shooting to kill.
Yeah, sure.
It's not the first step.
Presumably it's one of those things where if it's, I don't know if insurance comes into it, but it's one of those where you'd need to, before you get the treatment done, you'd need to show them the evidence as it is without, beforehand.
Yes, that's right. You'll need at least a technical report of the house from an expert.
Before you call the guy to kill them off.
That's right.
Yeah,
that
sure.
states that there is termites and when they started, or at least how long have they been on the property. Because if the termites started after you bought it, or it cannot be proven that they started before, then obviously it's the buyer's problem. Yes, that's why there's a limit on hidden defects, which is 6 months since the moment of the purchase. If 6 months have passed, then your opportunity to make a claim against the seller has lapsed. So it's key, obviously checking always before buying and, doing with a surveyor if required, or at least do your proper diligence personally. But even after you buy, you have to really go to the property and check it really thoroughly, because any claims that you have against the seller, they have an expiration date.
Right, of course. Yeah, sure. And this comes down to, again, that how are you expected to know all this if you're not an experienced surveyor? You don't necessarily know to look out for a little mound of sawdust where they've been burrowing away. So it may be something you'd miss, even if it hadn't cleaned it up.
Sometimes even the surveyor might even notice, and then he will pull the alarm system in place and say, you go and get a company to kill them all. But sometimes the surveyor probably will not even realize, as Antonio said, everything is clean, and you never know because they are hidden. But as I say, it's good, as Antonio said, it's good to look around very thorough and look into every single thing. If you cannot, you can hire professionals. If we're talking about a lot of money, then it's worth bringing companies, for example, the surveyor. What extent of the surveyor report is going to be done? Then he will put down all the items he will check. And whatever is missing, you might say, okay, well, how about this? How about that? Obviously, you could discuss it with your lawyer. What else can I look? And they do with us. They say, okay, what about... And I said, no, don't expect the surveyor to check the wiring, the electric. You need to send an electrician.
Oh, really?
Because he doesn't know. I mean, he's an architect engineer. He could know a little bit more than you and me, probably, obviously, but not to the extent that you want. I mean, sometimes it's an old building and the wires are inside. Unless you do a test and do a hole in the wall, which you will not notice.
No, a lot of these places that come up, they do need rewiring, definitely.
Yeah.
It's been long enough.
But sometimes, Moody, you expect that. I mean, as I was telling you, 1890 property, you expect everything old.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
Yeah,
I didn't need a surveyor because I knew everything is 1890s.
Yeah.
But sometimes when it's relatively when it's a new property, you can still have issues as well. So, but there are guarantees with the architect, with the architect engineer, with the developer, etc. But when they are resale, I think one simple thing we need to look into is how old is this property, and from there, then you can start making questions. What about the plumbing? What about the electric? But it's hard. It's hard to know because you're buying a resale property, and then if it's 50 years, it's 50 years. I mean, you know. But probably I might recommend, depending on the amount of money they're spending, or they're accepting these possible hidden defects, to send their own people of their confidence. For example, the plumber. Just send the plumber. Just send. But digging is difficult. That's what they all say. Every time we send a surveyor there, say, well, I need to dig. And you don't want destroying property.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
so
it's the foundations.
You know,
and
I had another case, a big thing. It was $1.5 million property, and they said that the plumbing was not very good. And they have to remove all that. Now, he had the surveyor report. They did but how on earth are you going to check behind all the tiles?
Yeah, of course.
So there is certain level of uncertainty of quality of products or how old they are.
Yeah, generally, I think people that would go and inspect a property bathroom-wise, they just think, well, I'm changing that aubergine-coloured suite for a start. So get rid of that bath. What about location? Does that matter? Because if it's out in the campo somewhere, there's maybe more issues to deal with, more critters and damp conditions and that sort of thing. Is anything different there?
Yes, of course. And also the rules for the buildings are not the same. But what Ignacio was saying is when you are buying a property, if the property is a brand new, off-plan, new build property, then the standard that you can really request from that property is rather high. You are buying something that's brand new, so you expect not only everything working, but also to be in mint or near mint condition.
Yeah.
So everything has to work perfectly because, again, it's brand new. So no plumbing required to be changed, and obviously no termites and nothing like that. Has to be, well, as close to perfect as possible. But if you're buying a resale, it depends on the age of the property, how big the property is, and the price, then you have to lower your standard requirement.
You have to be realistic about it.
Yes, that's right. You have to be realistic because we're not talking about some tear and wear, which may happen. You have to really make the difference or know the difference between what's a hidden defect, something that's surprising about the property, that does lower the value that the property has, and that it may have prevented you from either buying it or paying the price that the property was offered for if you knew about it. That's literally the definition of hidden defect. That against yes, the property is 60, 70 years old, so probably the plumbing is not, currently. And again, in what you were saying about the inland or country properties, that happens again. But the main issue with the inland properties are the septic tanks, particularly.
Sure.
That's a whole thing in itself. So when you are buying a property in the campo, probably it's not connected to the main sewage system of the city. Well, come on, it's in the campo. Probably miles away from a
big old gas
sewer.
cylinder there and stuff.
That's right.
Yeah, sure.
So it was very common in Spain to just dig a hole and put, probably with a little bit of luck, a deep hole in which they could pour all what they call the black waters, right?
Yeah.
So septic waters in it. But if you are buying a property in the campo and you request a new habitation certificate or a second occupation license, which are requested for getting tourist license or for getting the new utilities and water and electricity changed to your name, then in most towns in Alicante, not every town, so this is a town-by-town basis, you will have to have an updated septic tank. And that requires one of the following two. Either you got some of those that are closed off, sealed septic tanks that you have to empty once a year or once every 2 years. So, like the machine comes in, right, and they change it and cleans it and such. Or you get something that's a little bit difficult to say in English, I think. It's called oxidization septic tank. And what they do, this is a machine. It is buried under the land and you put the black waters on one side, it does process them. Let's not get into details. And then it drops a little bit at the end, which is green or close to eco-friendly as possible.
I see. So there's ways of doing it. Yeah. So, but I think anything sort of that you add these days needs to be sort of eco-friendly, doesn't it? So along those lines.
Well, the septic tank itself, the sealed one, is eco-friendly. According to the Heredia Town technician, they are the preferred method of choice for them. But you have to clean it every year, every 2 years, but obviously it's the most eco-friendly way because nothing is wasted. That waste that they take with the truck, with the lorry, you take it to a plant in which they process it. But the thing about these septic tanks is, if you take a look at the property, how are you going to know what kind of septic tank that it has, or if it even has one? Because maybe the current owner doesn't even know. So, why? Maybe they bought it like 20 years ago, and, they've been using the facilities. And
hadn't even thought about it. No.
That's right. Nothing has popped over any part of the land, and they don't know anything about it, never clean it. They just don't know.
No, sure.
So that's another thing for which you probably need a surveyor. It's a classic problem in a country property that you are buying, that not only it's not exactly a hidden defect, but definitely a deficiency that the property has, but it can also become a problem because current regulations require you to have a waste system that's up to date with the current requirements.
Yes.
And probably nothing built before 2015 or 2010 meets those criteria.
No, right.
But we'll be able, Antonio, to find it out with applying with the habitation license.
Oh, yes.
And then it opens the can of worms again and then say, they're requesting these things and these things. Okay, let's check. And now here comes the issue about retaining money. Who's paying that? Obviously, that's important to do before. So you retain the money from the sale. So how much is going to cost the whole thing?
I see. Yeah.
And then 5,000. Okay, well, out of the 300, I retain 5,000, and then we're going to put it in place properly to get the habitation license, etc. There are a lot of things on buying and property in Spain that you could look into.
Yes, I think we've discovered that today. Yeah, and for just about everything from termites to the septic tanks and all sorts, the best bet is to call the guy, or call your lawyer as well, of course.
We didn't even get into the place that will be for a different day, Moody, about the I think you call it the roots of a tree, pine trees. Javi as well has got a lot. And getting all the roots into your swimming pool and then having a case about that. But I will leave it that for next interview so everybody is exciting about the case.
Give us something to think about and look forward to, as you say. So no webinar later, but we'll get those back on track maybe next week or the week after. But we'll certainly see one or either of you in a fortnaight's time. Yeah. Okay. Thanks ever so much for your time. As always, we know you're busy. I'll let you get on. I'm sure there's appointments and all sorts to be had. Ignacio and Antonio from Pellicer and Heredia. That will do us with this for today. Then Dougie Mack on the way next here. And then Cal, he's back later on this afternoon. He's back this week.
You're listening to BayRadio.